Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our co-hosts, Sri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage with consumers online, in-store, and everywhere in between. And now, here are Sri and Peter.
Welcome again to the CPG Guys podcast. I'm PVSB, half of the nefarious duo known as the CPG Guys. I'm also the Senior Vice President of Commercial Strategy and Field Sales at Fetch Rewards, the mobile consumer engagement platform. I'm particularly intrigued by loyalty and the applications of first-party consumption data in the CPG retail industry. My co-host, he's an expert in omnichannel commerce, and he's fascinated by retail media and digital marketing. Please welcome the Sultan of SWAT himself, the man known as Sri. Sri, what's up, brother?
Hello, Peter. I think you promised me some baseball fun on this episode, so I can't actually wait to get started.
Oh, it's going to be fun, Sri. Now, as we record this, your team and my team and our guest team have all been eliminated. What started off in the playoffs as a promising opportunity for all of our at least two of our teams to make the World Series, because only two make it, that we all got summarily dismissed in very early rounds of the playoffs. So, yeah, it's a tough one, but hey, hope springs eternal. We can now, Sri, you and I can shift our attention to the football season. And whereas we were frenemies during baseball season, you and I are clearly aligned behind the New York Giants for football, right?
6-2. Nobody expected it.
There we go. All right, and we've kind of teased it, but before we get to our guest, who's also a big baseball fan and a good friend of mine, I'll remind our audience that all of our content may be found by just visiting cpgguys.com. We have a great website, all sorts of rich content, and other than the merch store, it's all free. Episodes are organized into themes like retail, media, and loyalty. So please go by and check there, and of course, follow us on LinkedIn. Just open up your app or go to the LinkedIn site. Most people use the app and enter CPG Guys in the search box. When you get to our page, just click the blue follow button. That way you'll get to see all the great content we're producing. We have 2 video segments that go out every week, the Retail Media Minute and the Gildenberg Omni Comment. We put the Fresh 4 video on there. We got a lot of stuff. So go follow us. And we've got 2 closed groups on LinkedIn that we manage. One's called CPG E-commerce. The other one's called Retail Media Professionals. There'll be hyperlinks in the digital liner notes of the podcast. We've got about 2,000 people who've joined those groups. Please do. It's really great. You can associate with like-minded people in similar professions and functional areas, so make sure to check out those groups. Also, we're on a lot of social media platforms, including LinkedIn, but Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now we got TikTok. We're TikTok stars, Sri. Who knew it? But we've got a really great series called Knowledge Drops, which is intended to be a fun way to learn about our industry. So just look for CPG Guys Knowledge Drop in TikTok in particular. Sri, I'm so glad you went over to India to visit your mom over the summer because your daughters taught you how to make us into TikTok stars, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So remember to check out also our sister podcast. First, there's the FMCG Guys, hosted by Daniel and Efrain. It's over in the EU, and it takes our format and talks to fast-moving consumer goods and retail luminaries in their market. And of course, the latest addition to our family, CPG Scoop, hosted by Jennifer and Risa. They conduct snackable conversations with industry veterans. It's a fun way to discover what's new and next in CPG commerce and marketing. Visit cpgscoop.com to learn more. And of course, we're very proud to partner with Next Up, aka Network of Executive Women, whose mission it is to advance all women in business and to promote the cause of gender equality and career development. Sarah Alter was a guest of this podcast during Women's Month in November, and we also made the big announcement that starting in 2023, the CPG Guys will be formal supporter-level sponsors of Next Up, and we will be allocating the 50 membership positions that we have as part of our subscription to people who are women who are founders, entrepreneurs, and otherwise in the industry who could truly benefit from being a part of Next Up, the resources they have, the networking they have, but may not necessarily be able to afford a corporate partnership. So that's our commitment back to the cause of promoting gender equality in the workplace. All right, now on to the main event. Today's episode focuses on how brands work to create functional expertise in customer engagements. And by customers, I mean retail customers. Building high-performing teams with subject matter expertise to support the strategic and tactical omnichannel efforts of retailers is of critical importance to CPG manufacturers. There's no discussion or doubt about that. In March of 2021, adult spirits manufacturer Pernod Ricard created a channel strategy and shopper marketing center of excellence. Here to speak with us about the journey to develop this expertise is a very good friend of mine. I met him over a decade ago when he was at the Campbell Soup Company, where he spent 10 years of his career in various sales leadership roles. He also worked at Keurig Dr. Pepper and E.J. Gallo. 4 years ago, he joined Pernod Ricard, where he now serves as the Vice President of Channel Strategy and Shopper Marketing. Please join Sri and me in welcoming to the podcast, Chris Hurley. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Great, folks. How are you both?
I know you're a long-time listener, first-time caller here. It's good to have you on board.
Yeah, and I wore the hat, I got to say, A, for reasons because it covers up my head, but B, because I know we've got, like you said, that in common, and we all thought we'd be playing ball this time of year. I always say when we lose, it's just a game. I don't really believe that, but I try to convince myself. It's just
we don't either.
I do have to ask one question. So at the time of this recording, we got Game 6 coming up. Do we have a prediction? Stros or Phillies?
Someone's going to score 5 runs to start off the game. That much I know. That seems to be
it's a trend
for the most part. So as to who it's going to be, I have no idea. Every time I think I predict, I get totally wrong.
Yeah.
This is a very complicated answer, Chris, because you're a Mets fan. You want to see Astros win this. I'm a Yankees fan. I cannot have Astros win this.
I don't blame you.
And after 2017, I ain't no Astro lover.
I don't blame either of you, but you got to respect why I'm rooting for the bad guys in this situation.
We're going to give you this one, Chris, for 2 reasons. A, you're a guest on the show, and B, the Astros always cheat, so they're going to cheat yet again.
Whatever it takes to beat the Phillies.
Or at the time this podcast is released, they would have cheated, and 3 months later we realized they figured out how to use pine tar, even though they got to show it to the umps after every inning.
That's true. And I guess the other thing is Aaron Judge. If we get Aaron Judge, he could be a Dodger, he could be a Yankee, could even be a Met. I don't know, but I don't think the Mets are going to get him. Anyway.
Rumor mill says San Francisco Giants.
Oh, what a story that would be.
I wouldn't be saying it's just a game then. Let's just leave it that way. It'll be life.
I'm hearing that Northern California may be in this future. We'll see.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. They got the Bucks.
I wouldn't be surprised about it. Hey, Chris, before we get to the questions Sri and I have prepared for you today, would you please, Sri and I are familiar with who Pernod Ricard is, but a lot of people in our audience probably aren't. Could you provide us an overview of the company, the brands in the portfolio that which our audience might be familiar with?
Yeah, sure. Pernod Ricard, it was actually created by the merger of 2 French spirits companies, shockingly named Pernod and Ricard. We're the second largest distiller in the world. We are in over 75 countries. We've got about 18,000 employees, almost 250 premium tasty brands. Some of the brands that folks would recognize here in the U.S. include one of my favorites, Jameson Irish Whiskey. We've got Absolute Vodka. We've got Malibu. We've got Kahlua. We've got the Glenlivet. We've got a whole host of big brands, including the whiskeys and some tequilas. We also have some great wine and champagne brands like Perrier Jouet and Campo Viejo. So that's a little bit of our portfolio here in the U.S. that some brands people might recognize. I will say we're leaning heavily via acquisitions and heavy up investments in tequilas and American whiskeys, because they're right now driving most of the growth in the category. So that's where we are. And our affiliate, our PR USA affiliate, is actually located in New York City, in Manhattan.
Thank you for that, Chris. Before I continue, I'll admit during my youth when I was consuming alcohol, I had a friend of mine who worked at Pernod Ricard, and on the back of the business cards at the time, I don't know if it's still true, they had all the different logo brands. And when I would go out to California to buy wine, I would actually use their business card to secure the 30% inter-winery discount. I was shameless. Now, of course, if you pay with a credit card, they would know that. So I would have to carry around a lot of cash to buy wine to bring back with me to the East Coast. But that is, I was shameless. So
there's no room anymore. We've got so many brands in our portfolio now. There's probably no room on the back of that card.
No doubt.
And Peter made me declare that at the time I used to drink adult beverages, Peter and I both did. at some point. Now it's all water these days. Glenlivet made it up to the top. It was It was on my shelf.
Love that.
And I think neat is the way to go. Let's clarify for everybody. No ice, please. No soda, none of that nonsense.
Love it. Don't distill it.
All right. So, Chris, thanks for that. We're going to include in the digital liner notes of this episode a link to your LinkedIn profile and the Pernod Ricard site where people can learn more about the company and learn more about your background. So why don't we get to the actual conversation? I'm going to kick it off first. And this is kind of the background, Chris. You've had, as I mentioned in the opening, quite an interesting career with a whole lot of brands that our audience can be very familiar with. You want to walk us through your career, starting with your work in what I'd call the fizz biz of carbonated beverages, and up until now with particular focus on some pivotal experiences in your career that you considered to really enable your progression to where you are now.
Yeah. So I'm a proud graduate of Notre Dame. I'll start there because I always like to get a shout out for the Irish in there. I think I can hear some of the boos right now out there, I'm sure. But my first role in this business was with Romano Brothers, which was one of the largest gallon distributors located in Chicago. Had a feather duster in my pocket, had a box cutter in my front pocket, and I was rolling around Chicago, building and selling in displays in a grocery store. And I'm not going to lie, my dad said, "Hey, you got a degree from Notre Dame. What are you doing?" But the truth is, it was truly the best way to learn the business because you learn the basics of selling, merchandising, learn the basics of retailer needs, shopper mentality, all at the ground level. It was a great experience. From there, I went to actually work for the winery in a couple of different roles, including a pivotal role in category management, which at the time was a brand new function. So kind of a tip to the fact that, I've been around a little while because it's now been around for about 30 years. Gallo was one of the first to embrace category management. From Gallo, I went to work for Keurig Dr. Pepper, at the time, Dr. Pepper 7-Up, a variety of roles, category management, strategy, sales roles, national accounts, the fizz biz, as you call it. And then from there, Campbell's Soup came a calling. And I was at Campbell's for about 10 years. Great experiences there. I was in several functions: category management, shopper insight, strategy, sales again. Peter, that's where you and I actually met for the first time. So that always will have a shining light in my heart. But what was cool about Campbell's was there was a lot of different categories we played in. Some big, where we were the share leader, like soup, which is synonymous with Campbell's. And then others like salsa and picante, where we had paste, where people were a lot smaller share brand. And the idea of trying to figure out how do you work with customers, retailers, when you're a 60 share versus a 6 share, it's a completely different approach. You need to figure out how to target that shopper and how to win at the point of purchase in a very different way. So that was a pretty cool experience. After Campbell's, I got back into my first love, which was out bev. And Pernod Ricard came calling, and I had the opportunity to run the national accounts team for wine and champagne. Did that for a few years. And then about a year and a half ago, the organization made some sweeping changes. They wanted to stand up some new functions, and I had the opportunity to do what I'm doing now, which is to lead the shopper marketing and channel strategy team. And I've been in this role for about 16 or 17 months.
Chris, first of all, welcome to the show. Peter and I are happy that you decided to join the CPG guys today for this conversation. I also love that baseball banner is so meaningful in your life, like Peter and mine. There's not a day that Peter and I don't trade notes on baseball, by the way. So clearly, this is shopper marketing capabilities is in your wheelhouse. You've been trained for it, know it pretty well. So you joined the company in 2018 as actually the VP of sales for national chains, for wines and champagnes. You clearly came in, you said, hey, there's a broader need for expertise in shopper marketing capabilities. What great timing, right? Right before COVID, when shopper marketing took another direction and digital became bang in the center of everything. How did this come about? What was the competitive landscape for these types of services? Because it's a busy space with a lot going on. Everybody's jumping in that direction. And why is it important for you in the company to resource against it?
Yeah, you used the phrase earlier on about subject matter experts, and part of this transformation, by the way, I admit transformation is probably becoming the most overused word in the industry right now, but it truly was what we undertook as an organization in 2021, and we stood up a lot of functions that were focused on subject matter expertise. We really ramped up our insights business, our media expertise, our multicultural marketing, and included in that was identification of the organization recognition of the need to really lean into shopper marketing. So that was the thing, is like, okay, rather than have folks who are jack of all trades and masters of none, let's have some folks who really can be masters of something. So it was an exciting time to be the organization. We're in a function called commercial marketing. So we sit between commercial and marketing, which means we need to speak both languages, right? Commercial and marketing. So really our mantra is we've got to lead with insights. We have to be on brand strategy, but we have to be executable in the marketplace, because especially in a 3-tier system, and I know you two know enough about it to know that nothing happens unless our distributor partners make it happen. So you need to lead with insights, you need to have brand strategy, but you need to make sure that the commercial mindset is firmly in place so that it can be executed in the marketplace. That's critical. And now you asked, Sri, you also asked about some of the competitors and where they were. They were in different places. Some were there, some were trying to get there. But Pernod recognized that if we did this the right way, we could have a competitive advantage. And I think one of the things that makes us unique is that we are structured by channel. And it sounds intuitive, right, for those of us who've been in the business, but you both know that when you walk into a grocery store, typically speaking, a different mindset, right? You may have a list. You're trying to get in, you're trying to get out, you're trying to get home for the game. So tick, 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 get out. Our job in shopper marketing is to interrupt that traffic pattern, get the shopper's attention with a creative, impactful program, convert them at the point of purchase, get that product in the cart. You go to a chain liquor store, it's a little different situation, typically speaking. Usually maybe you're in an exploration mindset. You're going to have a big party in the weekend. You look for some creativity, some education. So the tactics that we deploy at the point of purchase and even pre-point of purchase will be slightly different in that situation. So that's the critical part about shopper marketing, is knowing what buttons to push, because we know that the shopper's mindset does vary by channel. And that's why my team is actually cut by channel. We've got a groceries expert, a liquor expert, an on-premise expert, so that they understand where the shopper's head is at that point of purchase.
Thanks for that, Chris. By the way, I'm going to correct you on one thing. The most overused term in our industry is ROAS.
Very fair. Very fair.
One thing I think we can agree on, Peter, is a man of our own heart, because he said before you go to the game. He didn't say before you go home, before you go shopping, before you go cooking. He said before you go to the game in his example.
I did.
I know. Well, I will say this. When he was describing all the elements of that, Sri, I saw a twinkle in your eye. He's cut from the same cloth as we are. So this is both in terms of our love of baseball and the industry we come from. So that's really great. Chris, as you mentioned earlier, in prior roles managing, prior to you coming to shopper marketing channel strategy, here at Pernod Ricard, you manage those functions in other companies. Was this the first time you actually had to build such an organization from the ground up? And how do you go about developing a blueprint for what this group would be charged with accomplishing? And how do you set the outcomes that you want to measure against?
It's the first time I've had the opportunity to develop the team from scratch as far as staffing it. I have inherited new functions. I've taken over teams, as most folks have. But this was a unique opportunity. And a couple of thoughts. First, we had tremendous support from the C-suite, and I can't say enough about that. They recognized that this was going to be a journey. Another overused term, by the way, right now in the industry, is going to be a journey, not a destination. And so I think they recognize that. But it truly does apply here, because every day we're like, okay, we need to fix this. Then we fix it. We realize, okay, what's next? How do we keep getting better? So that was important, to have the patience of the leadership team to say, okay, we know this is going to take some time. Once we knew we had that, it was like, okay, now what do we do? So being a brand new function, you have to start with a strong foundation. You need to have a vision, a clear mission. You have to have clear core values. And all this helps you define your culture. And the reality is, as you all know, without culture, you can't win. I mean, we wouldn't even last, never mind win. And so once you embed those things into your team and you know what it's supposed to look like, then you go about finding the right people. So finding the right people, in my case, wasn't that difficult, I have to say. I knew what we wanted. We wanted a diverse team that represented our consumers. We also wanted a little bit of a mix of internal candidates and external expertise, because I do believe, as you know, this business is amazing and you need some of that expertise in the 3-tier system, bringing in ideas from the outside, especially from traditional CPG, is never a bad idea. But you have to blend those two, right? You can't just bring the CPG mentality and say, okay, this is where it's going to go. You got to recognize the values they both bring. So we brought in some externals, lean heavily on internals, and there was such a wealth of talent at Pernod Ricard to choose from that we were very blessed. So that's the way we did it. We ended up with a very diverse team, a very strong team. I think it was Bill Parcells who said that, hey, if you're gonna ask me to cook the meal, at least help me shop for the groceries. And that was, of course, when you're trying to get himself promoted to general manager. And that applies here too. It was the great opportunity to find the right people to drive the business. So it was a pretty exciting opportunity, and it was the first time in my career I had the chance to do that.
I'm loving these references. Bill Parcells came out of left field. I hope at some point we'll get to the winning and the medals portion from that. There's only one medal and only one gets to play. You don't get medals for competing.
Shri, Bill, just to correct you, Bill didn't come out of left field. He came out of the tunnel in the corner of the end zone. But sorry.
Right under the goalposts.
Right. Yeah.
Very helpful, Peter. Thank you. How would I know anything about sports? So we just hit the surface level of staffing, right? And people, and you refer to how the culture has to be set up first, the vision, the mission, clear values, things of that nature. So let's say you've done that now. So when you've gotten the mission is clear, the vision is clear, you said, here are my values. How did you go about staffing people on this team and putting together the team that works with you every day? Did you say, hey, we got to get an external lens? Did you take existing staff and say, hey, they know the product, the brands, and the price points and the channels, so I'm going to retrain them in this new subject expertise? And then on top of that, no matter what you do, you'll have to have an education curriculum that repeats itself. So how did you do all of that?
Yeah, it was a combination. So I'll say this. We did have folks who had never sold anything in a 3-tier system before. We knew bringing them in, they understood the shopper. They had that piece of it, right? That was key. And then we had folks who came up through the tier system. And so making sure we had that combination would make everybody better. But I think a key is, as I mentioned, we're part of commercial marketing. So we are in commercial and marketing. So we've got to be able to speak both languages. And I wanted a team that had a good blend of both. Folks who could work with brand, understand brand strategy, the importance of brand strategy. Because we all know, and I've been on both sides of the aisle, so I feel I can say this, marketing always says, well, sales doesn't execute my program. And the sales folks typically say, well, marketing doesn't give me the right programs, right? So you needed a team of people who was respectful of both sides of the aisle and who understood the challenges, both in the commercial side of the business and the marketing side of the business. So it was really important that we got a good group of folks, within the management team and then within the associate managers and all through, because having that just gives you credibility. And we knew early on we were going to have to establish credibility. And if you can't speak their language, that's a bad way to start. So that was a key way, Shri, that we leaned in, was to make sure we had a good blend of commercial expertise and marketing expertise.
I want to remind our audience that we're speaking with Chris Hurley, Vice President of Channel Strategy and Shopper Marketing at Pernod Ricard. Okay, Chris, so now that you've got your mission, you've got your team assembled, how do you decide about allocation of resources and focus? Where do you put your team's effort relative to the product portfolio? And as you mentioned, you've broken it out by channel. How do you set about deciding where you're going to play? It's like you stand in front of the roulette table and you can't put a chip on every single number. How do you decide which numbers to put your chip on?
Yeah, that is probably one of the most difficult nuts to crack. I mean, we've got a tremendous portfolio. You asked me to name some brands, and I know by just naming a few brands, I've left a lot out, and so I'll probably get in trouble for that. But we've got so many great brands, such a great portfolio. We've got to make choices. And here in the U.S., we service 50 states made up of widely diverse markets, widely diverse populations, channels that have different needs, customers that want something different, every type and size of format that you can possibly imagine, right? It's unlike any market really in the world. So when we're making decisions on where to focus our efforts, we start with data and insights. And we've got a great deal of both with which to work. And it's something that we've always had at Pernod Ricard, but it's one of those spaces that the organization during the transformation I mentioned earlier really heavy up invested in and really stepped things up. So I had the benefit of earlier in my career of working closely with, at the time, dunnhumby, now 8451. And, I got to see the magic of when I would sit with Kroger, the magic of bringing in, real data. This is what your shoppers are saying. And you know how much easier it is to drive credibility at retail when you can speak that language. And so we've now got that. So having that at our fingertips has been incredibly important. So we make our decisions based on what the data and what the insights tells, essentially what the shopper's telling us. That's how we make our decisions. We've got a very collaborative brand team, very great commercial team who understands that choices have to be made. There's sometimes some difficult decisions, but we need to remember that there are 10 pull occasions also. So you've got the brands to be chosen based on when we have a right to win. And then one of those 10 pull occasions that are important to our customers and to our consumers, because we have to develop our programs in a way when we actually have a right to win at that time in that market. So then lastly, as I mentioned, 3-tier system. If our distributor partners aren't on board, it doesn't go very far. So that's how we decide how to allocate resources, is start with the data, start with the insights, focus on the right occasions, and when those brands are right to win, and then make our pitch from there.
Speaking of a 3-tier system, I'm going to use the dreaded E word, or the e-commerce word, which is largely a mystery still in the, I would say, the bev alcohol space with the 3-tier system, right? So with this explosive growth of e-commerce in the pandemic, marketplaces like Drizzly came by, making it a little easier for manufacturers like y'all, and Reserve Bar was another one. They started to emerge while traditional brick and mortar sales like Total Wine started to establish digital storefronts because they can sell to consumers. What did you set about as a strategy for ensuring that the company could succeed in this space?
Yeah, so we had a leg up because the company had the foresight before the pandemic to really lean into the e-com space. We all know the numbers associated with e-commerce, right? The explosive growth there. And it's funny. Again, I'm going to date myself, but when I was a kid, we used to hear about the killer bees are coming. They were going to attack the U.S. and watch out, the killer bees are coming. And it's like, e-com's coming, e-com's coming. Well, guess what? It's here, right? It's here. It's not like it's just growing. It's actually a big part of the business. So fortunately, before the pandemic, the organization really leaned into that. And so we were able to capitalize on the explosive growth that came about during the pandemic. And one of the opportunities in this business is in e-com is how does it play into a particular program? And you can do it one of two ways. You can treat it like a channel, right? So you develop your program from a shopper perspective, from an in-store perspective, and then quarter turn it or tweak it to meet e-com's needs. Or, and I think the better way is to have e-com involved further upstream. Make sure that they're fully integrated into the program. So when we use the phrase, another overused word, omnichannel, right? Is it really omnichannel if they're not involved in the process further upstream? I think that's a fair question. So by having them included in the conversation, in the briefing process, so that they can say, okay, this is how I can blow this thing out. And it's with the following thing in mind. We talk about omnichannel. I like to use the phrase omni-pop. There's pre-pop, which is where many decisions are made before they enter the store. Like 2/3 of decisions are made in out-bev before they walk into the store. Then there's at-pop, which is critical because that's where the shopper votes, right? That's where the shopper says, with their dollar, you convert them or you don't. You trade them up or you don't. And then there's post-pop. You engage the shopper afterwards to say, I feel really good about that purchase. I'm going back, because brand retention and out-bev is a major challenge. There's so much switching. So if you really do this holistically and you engage e-com early on in the process, you're much more likely to be successful of having a true omni-pop program that's successful across all channels. And our shopper team works closely with our e-com team to make sure that we hit the right shoppers at the right time, in which is an increasingly complex shopper journey.
Peter, do you want to guess what the new overused word on the CPG guys is going to become? I like omnipop. Away with omnichannel.
I was going to say the CPG guys are the most overused words on the CPG guys podcast.
Because they're legends in their own minds, those two guys.
They are, and they talk in the third person about themselves. So, Chris, I want to bring together a couple of concepts that you've already touched on. One is around the importance of insights and activation, our core functions of shopper marketing organizations in the CPG world. But you also talked about the complexities of tied house laws in adult beverage categories. that can really challenge companies like you in terms of procuring some of that valuable customer data that allows you to listen to. Can you walk us through some of the challenges you see about your ability to fully embrace or access insights in your specific vertical of, a controlled substance, and what are the implications? How do you navigate that in this world?
Yeah, so we've got a great team, some of whom started out in the wholesale business. I actually started out working with distributors, so they understand the 3-tier system. They understand the difficulty in navigating that. We've got a great insights team that understands the difficulty in navigating that. And really what it comes down to often is just a matter of piecing the puzzle together, because there's no one true final set of data that we can go to say this is the answer. And I'm used to that, both at Dr. Pepper and at Campbell's, but you don't do that. You've got to piece it together from several different sources, and you can get to a good line of sight. Now, I will say a lot of improvements are being made. I think that smart people recognize there's a lot of money to be made also if they can crack that code. But as long as we have some of these laws in place, some of these restrictions in place, it is a controlled substance, as you said. As long as that perception is out there, it's going to continue to be a challenge. But I will say, the team has done a nice job of leading with insights, and it's only because of our insights team who's found a way to piece the story together to make sure that we've got the right information to win.
Love that answer, by the way. So we like to wrap up things on the CPG guys by doing a little bit of future forward outlook. So the big question I have for you in this amazing area of expertise you have in shopper marketing is, where do you see this adult beverage category changing in terms of capabilities or channel focus? And do you think the pandemic-related acceleration will cause any of these outdated or archaic laws around marketing adult beverages to change? And then how is the company positioned to lead its industry in this transformation?
Yeah, I think the pandemic changed a lot, right, in general, but it changed a lot in our business. I think the most obvious one is cocktails to go, where, you see increasingly states allowing you to take a drink from a bar and then walk around to another restaurant or walk around to shops with cocktail in hand. Several states made it.
I think New York City allows you to do it all the time.
I think they might. You're right. Pretty good now. But I think about a dozen states have made that legal now. And I think many of them are going to make it legal on a permanent basis because it's a very popular thing. And it's a way to make more money, to be honest. There's also loosening of some of the rules around direct to consumer. So folks can receive their favorite alcoholic beverage directly at their home. Now, I live in Ohio. I can't get that, so I can't access that service. But I do think the winds of change are in the air on that front. And the good news is Pernod is ready to capitalize with our great stable of brands. We've got tasty cocktails that are always good to go or always good to stay as well. And so I think that's the good news. But, things like the 3-tier system, there's a lot of value in that. I embrace it. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to get back into this business is I think it's a great challenge. But some of those laws you mentioned, cocktails to go, direct consumer, I do see those, changing. Well, just look around. There's been a lot of laws changing, and I think that's going to continue to happen. I think there's just going to be a groundswell of support from consumers saying, hey, we would like to see this instead. And if they vote accordingly, we know how politicians are, right? They're going to move with the winds of change. So I think that's where it's going to go.
I want to remind our audience that all of our content is available at cpgguys.com. And please, while you're there, on the menu bar at the top at navigation, click on ratings and reviews. Drop us a review and leave us a rating because we want our podcast to reflect the direction you want us to go in, talking to great people like Chris who come here to share with us. So if you've got an opinion about that, please leave it there. And if you think you have some thought leadership to contribute to this community conversation, drop us an email at contact@cpgguys.com. And maybe you can join us on the podcast one day. Don't forget, as I said, to drop us that rating and review at cpgguys.com. And thank you, of course, as always, for the 17,000 followers of LinkedIn and growing. We are greatly appreciative of the trust you place in us. We do not take that for granted, and we're so happy that you consider us to be both educational and entertaining at the same time. Chris, I knew this was going to be a great conversation, and you delivered. I'm going to give you a home run out of this one. There's no question. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate. We love talking to AlcBev manufacturers because it's a really industry little niche within the consumer packaged goods world, and you gave us a really great perspective. So thank you for joining us today.
I love it. Thanks for the opportunity. I do have to give one shout out to our legal team on that last answer. If I didn't do that, because they're phenomenal to work with. Because at the end of the day, the laws are where they are, and they keep us on the straight and narrow. Yep. So we got to navigate carefully. But this has been it's been a real pleasure. Thinking back and forth, it's been great. Great show too. You guys do phenomenal work.
Thank you, Chris. We love being able to do this. All right, Shri. Wow, power-packed episode, right?
Yeah.
I want you to give us a bit of a summary of what you heard, what really caught your attention from what Chris shared with us today.
So I'm going to stick to the team. You gave him a home run. I'm going to give him a fastball down the middle to swing at. So we started up top, kind of buzzwords, but the right words to me, meaningful, poignant words, which are lead with insights. Winning requires a commercial mindset. And shopper marketing is the art of knowing what buttons to push via channel expertise. Then we declared 4 overused terms in the industry, but they're important because they actually sit squarely in shopper marketing, just like they do in other functions. Journey, not destination.
Yep.
The number of times I've heard in my life shopper journeys, and I am the one actually that keeps asking as a sales captain, when can I get the new omnichannel journey? So there we go, omnichannel, another overused word, which is on the journey of transformation. So here we go, third one. And then Peter pointed out ROAS. I couldn't have ended the show without that. Then we talked about people, right? Starting a new team. I think your advice was more about how to start a new team, which is have a clear vision, have a mission, be very clear about your values. And if you do that, you can drive the culture and be cultural and also assimilate into the culture of the company. Without that, everything is short term. So my takeaway from that, culture can drive wins if necessary. And then once you got that, then you hire the people, put the teams together. Then you gave the example of Bill Parcells. If you're going to let me cook the meal, let me buy the groceries. So what that basically meant is, let me staff the team, let me set it together, but I'll stick to the values of the company in the first place and make sure that it delivers against the culture. Great advice for those kind of going down Chris's path, starting up teams, etc. And then I asked you, where did you source all these people from? And I think another thing that resonated with me very well, because I think the same way, is it's a blend of outside and inside. A lot of people think they're going to come in from the outside, they're going to hire everybody from the outside, and that's the only way to go. But then you lose channel expertise. Too much of a risk, the commercial expertise you referred to. So it's a blend of internal commercial expertise and the external expertise as well coming together. I've met more people with a dunnhumby background on the show than I have in my lifetime in 27 years in CPG. But what that tells me is when someone says, I have a dunnhumby background, I relate it to decision making will always be made on the basis of data and less on emotion, which is very important because then you do what the shopper says, and those were your exact words. Then we went to digital and e-com. What's clear is you started the conversation. We don't have a lot of people who come to the show and say, we were already ready for it. They say, here's what I did in the e-commerce journey. I took it seriously. Here's what I had to build. You said, we were already ready for it. And the change, you said, the change maker for you was not so much capability build only, but it's making sure the omnichannel, the overused term, e-com was represented early in the process, at the beginning of the process. So when planning took place, e-com was just a piece of it. You didn't need this funny separate team sitting somewhere doing 8 different things. And you talked about the 3 pops, ending with the Omni pop at the end of the day. And future, I think we debated a little bit about, will there be change to DTC and home delivery? But it looks like cocktails to go is already here. So Peter, in another world, if you and I were drinking adult beverages, we would have really leveraged those cocktails to go all day long.
I couldn't agree more, Shri. That was
some recap.
That was a great summary. Thank you for that.
Some recap. Wow.
He's always delivering. He always
nails it.
Well, anyhow, thank you, Shri, and of course to our audience, thank you for always joining us. We look forward to speaking with you on the next episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Goodbye. The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only.
By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.